Hello, Kimball. I'd like to start by asking you a question about U.S. market volatility and valuations. Currently, the U.S. is about 74% of the MSCI world, which is the highest in 20 years. Valuation seems stretched, and volatility is subdued. Can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing valuations at the market level and in your portfolio?
Sure. No, I think it's true that the U.S. market seems quite stretched by historical standards. There are just about on every metric you can think of, it's trading at least a standard deviation away from the average over the last sort of 25 or 30 years. And it's not just the top 10 names. Even if you pull those out of the S&P, the valuation of the other 490 names is still pretty high by historic standards. And I think part of this is the narrative around U.S. exceptionalism. And I think that, like many narratives, there's a lot of truth to that because there's been a lot of innovation, a lot of business development, and a lot of jobs created here in the U.S. over the years. But the question is it sort of priced in at the moment? We've found more value internationally. And if you look at the intrinsic values of the businesses that we own in the portfolio relative to their stock prices, which is sort of a granular way of thinking about it, but one that we use, you'd see many of the U.S. names, particularly in tech land, trading close to intrinsic value, and a lot of names outside of the U.S. trading at pretty wide discounts to intrinsic value.
I'd like to ask you a question about gold. Gold suffered a little pullback after Trump was elected, but then has rebounded. And if you zoom out, it's actually been quite resilient relative to real rates and nominal rates. Over the long term, it's typically inversely correlated to those two things. My question for you is there something secularly different that's supporting the price of gold?
I think you're right about the inverse correlation with gold and real rates, but you have to sort of deconstruct the gold market a little bit to get the full story. People have been selling gold. It's really been ETF holders and retail holders of gold. And so you've seen a drop in the ounces that are held by the largest ETFs. And so that's consistent with the real rate story. The side of the demand that's been very strong for gold has been coming from central banks. And much of that buying sort of really began at the time that the U.S. put sanctions on the Russian government. And I think it's probably natural for other governments who are reliant on sort of, U.S. reserve system that's been in place for so long, to consider diversifying a little bit outside of their dollar holdings. And I think that has been part of the story. It wouldn't surprise me, by the way, and you're starting to see this a little bit. Retail buying is picking up a little bit, which I think is, probably retail ETF buying is picking up a little bit, which I think, given some of the uncertainty around the fiscal situation, geopolitics, et cetera, is probably, kind of a natural thing for people to be considering.
Thanks very much for your time today. Look forward to speaking to you next time.
Thank you.